someone, I believe it was in Chicago, I believe, and this lady was talking about her friend, and she said that a bunch of guys drove down the street and stuck their head out the door and called her a black, some kind of a really bad name, because she was a black lady, and they said some really bad name to her. But that's not what upset her. What upset her was these were black guys that said that. So not only are there problems, maybe still tensions between blacks and whites. There's tensions between blacks and blacks, which goes back to William Lynch. Jihad Shabazz, would you please amplify those sentiments a little bit up here in sharing about Lynch, because it seems like all the social, psychological, and economic ills facing black people can be traced back to the dictates of William Lynch. Jihad?
The reason I got on board, thank you, Mr. Hackley. The reason I got on board with the whole concept of Willie Lynch is that we found something. Well, the climate in this country right now is that many people feel that black people in general are suffering from a disease called excusism. We make excuses for everything not succeeding, our families, our jobs, economically, or what have you. And what we found, and for the most part, our people do suffer from that. But what we have found now that's totally unique to black people, more so than immigrants who have came here during the early part of the 19th century and who are coming here now, is we found a starting point. And that starting point began with William Lynch. And his modus operandi was that he was the main one that during the Caribbean, during his time, set a program in place where he could keep slavery perpetual, even when the system had deteriorated. And it encountered a problem back in the South where they had heard about slave uprisings in Central and South America due to the disproportionate number of black people to white slave owners, which caused a problem because in numbers you have a powder keg there. So he was brought here to the United States to deal with the problem before word had got back to the slaves here in the United States, a program where you divide across color lines, gender lines, even class lines, in which he said that this program, when he started in 1712, would last for 300 years. And if it would work to its ultimate end, would last forever. So the reason we're doing this show today is that we have a starting point. Now we're here today. We have different people talking about different success stories, different things, and I think these are the precursors to dismantling Willie Lynch and the system that's been put in place today. One thing that I can say about myself, knowing about Willie Lynch, is that when I attended Indiana State University, I met a guy by the name of Omar Farouk back in Indiana State, in which he wanted to start up the Malcolm X club there, in which everyone knows I'm a big fan of Malcolm X. We had speeches during his time in the Nation of Islam about Willie Lynch. That's when I actually heard about Willie Lynch. Now, I never knew the relevance of it until now, as I got older and see how things are taking place within the black community, that I understood what Malcolm was talking about. Even though there were other people who were starting various movements like Martin Luther King and things of that nature, it still applied because those two people, it's like we witnessed today. I heard, earlier about black people not sticking together, and I believe that happened to W.D. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, as well as Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Both had the right programs, but they were coming closer together, but it never transpired. So I think with different success stories, different ideologies, different religious persuasions, we still can dismantle Willie Lynch for the simple fact that we're starting to talk about it. And through this process of dismantling lynchology, we can find different solutions that eventually would end the whole concept of perpetual slavery. And the reason we coined this lynchology is because we believe that it is a social science. I was taught back in grad school about critical theory, and he talked about a concept of what they call epistemology. How do we know what we know? And then they came up with the concept of ontology, which states that, ways of knowing. And this is a starting point, I believe, through different stories, through the younger people, through the older people. These are ways of knowing how to address certain situations, how to persevere, and how to dismantle lynchology. And through this, I believe there can be a cohesive effort, regardless of, like I said, different ideological persuasions, that we can go about dismantling Willie Lynch and basically send the ideology under the grave. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jihad.